Hey, college sports fans, this ought to be a really fun episode. We are still in our position previews for the 2025 season, and at the same time, we are getting into the best all time at each position. We got quarterbacks today, so we got the gunslingers coming at you. I'm Bill Zimmerman. This is the Reign Supreme Always podcast.
I'm Daniel Shirley, quarterback, 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 right? We know that's what people love to talk about. And there's been some good ones at Clemson. There's been some great ones. There's been some good ones. There's been some that we won't talk about. There'll probably be some on the list that I might mention because I'm an old man. So
Good.
we'll go through this list for sure.
Bring him up. Yeah, I mean, even as a kid in Florida, it's usually easy to know the quarterback names that you had, and they're one of the nicest guys at quarterback. Maybe the stats don't put him on this list, but I'll bring him up at some point. You and I had a fun day with him at one point in Little John Coliseum. I'll leave it at that. So, but as I said, we'll talk about this 2025 preview for quarterbacks. We know who's atop that list, but there are a few things to discuss about Cade Klubnik, and I think there's a few things to be said about the top reserve in that room as well. So we'll get
Yep.
into that. But let's start with sort of a group of greats, if you will, on this team. And sometimes I use the phrase "Hall of Very Good" for where a player belongs, and I think this group of quarterbacks is kind of between Hall of Very Good and like Hall of Fame, or are people still doing the Mount Rushmore thing with picking four guys? I don't know. The first guy we
Table
already
Rock. It'll be Table Rock. We'll
Table
go with
Rock,
Table Rock.
nice. Are
Yeah.
there carvings on Table Rock? I don't know, but
We can
uh,
put some up there.
there we go. You know, I'm going to start out of order with this list of guys now at the bottom here, and because we all know how important Homer Jordan is, but one of my favorites was Woody Dantzler. I mean, just
Yes.
what a talent he was. I've used the term electric with some of the defensive ends and with the linebackers as well, but my goodness, Dantzler just he was a highlight reel at any given moment. Like every time the ball was snapped, you're like edge of your seat, what's going to happen? And I think, even though it was 98 to 01, it really is a good long time before Clemson's offense really hit high gear with guys like CJ Spiller and Sammy Watkins. Dantzler just did so much, 5,634 passing yards from 98 to 01, 36 passing TDs, then 2,761 rushing yards on top of
Yep.
that. Career leader among QBs, by the way, and then 27 rushing TDs. And it shows why those of you who are aficionados of watching Hard Knocks with the HBO stuff and regarding the NFL, Bill Parcells tried so hard to find a spot on the Dallas Cowboys for Woody Dantzler, just couldn't find that one way where he could always be counted on to contribute. Tried him as a quick returner, tried him as a running back, tried him all over the field, I think, and you saw the potential for him to do just about anything based on the way he played quarterback.
Yeah, Bill probably before his time, right? I mean, maybe a decade before his time in history of college football. You know, you look at what he meant to that team. I mean, think about if he'd have played with better defenses or
Yeah.
played with better weapons around him. Will never forget that Georgia Tech game. Where they win that game in overtime. He scores the winning touchdown. I was on the field when he scored the touchdown. Was it JJ McKelvey, right, that caught the long touchdown pass in the fourth
There's a
quarter? So
name. Wow.
yeah, so and Sean McDonough, dancer to McKelvey. My goodness, he screams because it gave Clemson the lead late in the game, and they had to go to overtime, and they won the game. But I just if he would have come along now, right? Think what he could be in the current era of college football of guys running the ball and throwing it a lot. Um, just a tremendous, tremendous player. And there's a lot of guys on this list, Bill, that when we look at college football, you look at great Clemson quarterbacks. Well,
Be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/Clemson Kickoff. It's free. It's the best place to catch all our episodes, and it's the best place for you to comment with your reactions.
some of these guys, you mentioned Homer Jordan, Steve Fuller, Rodney Williams, they played the game one way. That was a different game than some of these that we're going to talk about who've come along in this passing era have played the game and have become great quarterbacks. that's what I think makes this quarterback list so intriguing. My goodness, I mean, you look at what Homer and Steve Fuller meant to that team
Yeah.
and to that program. Well, how do you rank somebody ahead of that? Well, then look what these guys, this new era has become. And and I mean, Tajh Boyd's one of my favorite players who ever played the game. And you just say, man, I wish he played with better defenses. Could he have elevated to that next tier? He was a great player. This is a good list, even though they are very different in how they got it done for the Tigers.
Yep. I mean, look no further than two of the names down there, Homer Jordan and Charlie Whitehurst. Homer
Yep.
Jordan won a national championship, 3,509 passing yards total for his career with 14 passing TDs. Then you go to Whitehurst, 9,600 plus passing yards, 49 passing TDs. I mean, very, very different ways of approaching the game. Of course, Homer Jordan, back in that era under Danny Ford, it was 3 yards and a cloud of dust. Rodney Williams also on that list, 4,082 passing yards, another 3 yards and a cloud of dust kind of guy. I remember, I think it was his final game against Oklahoma. He threw for like what, 200, 230, 250 yards, something like that passing. They sort of unleashed him, quote unquote, right? Like not even a 300-yard game, but it was like a miracle to see him throwing the ball as much as he did then. Jordan and Williams just understood how to run that option offense that Danny Ford thrived on. And had the offensive lines in front of them to do
Yeah.
those things right for those running backs. You always had that too deep, fullback, too deep tailback. Those attacks where guys were splitting carries, staying fresh, and frankly, plenty of guys up front who just were absolute road graders in that offense. You had that big crown on the field back then, and
Yep.
the literal phrase of running downhill, like Danny running to the short side all day long. And they're literally kind of running downhill when they're running that option to the short side of the field. But then you go back, to the guys like Dantzler, Whitehurst, even Willie Simmons, like some of those higher passing
Willie
totals in the
Simmons.
more modern era. Good to see Willie Simmons doing some good things in the coaching realm. And I know maybe he'll come home. We'll see how that works out. Boy, yeah, just so many names, and even in between, like some of the guys. The one guy I wanted to bring up was Richard Moncrief, one of the nicest people you will ever meet around Clemson football. Graduated with us and same graduating class, sat a couple rows behind me, and just despite what could have been and at times frankly was a contentious relationship between student media, such more myself than you, I will admit that up front. We patched things out, we patched things up, we hashed things out, and we were both all smiles that day on the graduation floor down there at Little John. So that was a lot of fun. Deshaun Cameron, another one back then, a
Sean
lot of fun.
Cameron.
Louis Solomon, right? Louis Solomon was kind of that spark plug kind of guy. So a lot of guys who haven't put up big stats, but have flashed at that quarterback position throughout time, and really brings, I think, a little more heft to when you look at this list, what it took for these guys to get there. And let's move into that final four, if you will. I think the top three are pretty clear, but then I set up a rule for this. I called a shot here. If you're in the Ring of Honor, you're on the list, and that's Steve Fuller. Academic All-American while at Clemson, and a very good Clemson quarterback in his own right. He was kind of clipboard Jesus before clipboard Jesus, back in the day, and of course got plenty of playing time with Kansas City, and I think a little with Chicago as well. Fuller with 4,078 passing yards. Again, different era, right? More like that Homer Jordan, Rodney Williams kind of number there. 22 passing TDs. He was a first round draft pick with those kind of numbers,
And won a Super Bowl, even though he was a backup.
right?
Bill, I kind of put these in tiers of Rodney Williams, Homer Jordan, Steve Fuller were one kind of quarterback. Don't forget Mike Epley,
Oh
Chris
yeah,
Morocco, right? I mean, those kinds of guys. Chris Morocco was only a starter for 1 year, but what had a great year.
yeah.
Mike Epley played football and basketball at Clemson. So, and then you put like Charlie Whitehurst, Woody Dantzler, you know, Willie Simmons. Although Willie Simmons, one reminder, he is now the head coach at Florida Atlantic, or Florida International. He's
Oh,
moved
thank
on
you.
to Florida International
I had missed
to
that
be
he
the head
left you.
coach. So
Very
so
good.
we can cheer on Willie and
Absolutely.
hope he does well at Florida International.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but look, I love Homer Jordan. I don't know that any player has ever meant more to the program than Homer Jordan and Steve Fuller. But Steve Fuller came first. Steve Fuller kind of set the standard, right, of what the Clemson quarterbacks could be. Billy Lott came after him and was in between Steve Fuller and Homer Jordan. So, but no, Steve Fuller is in, like you said, he's in the Ring of Honor. I love Homer Jordan. I think Homer Jordan would probably be fifth on the list if we're doing a list. He might be next in that next, the top of that next tier. Won a national title, did all those things, but it almost feels like Fuller and Homer Jordan are connected
Yeah,
because that group that won in 81 doesn't win without what happened 77, 78, and that group after them or that group before them. So I think those two are really connected in my mind anyway, as a Clemson fan.
yeah, for sure. And then this next tier, boy, is there such a thing as a three-sided die that you could roll? I mean, you could ask 30 people and get, 10, 10, 10, all saying, hey, here's the best quarterback in Clemson history. So please don't take this order too literally, but we'll start by discussing Deshaun Watson, 2014 to 16. He ended that 35-year national championship gap. Let's go be
Yes, he did.
legendary. First team All-American, first round draft pick. It should have been picked higher. I mean, Trubisky, come on, really? Can't argue with Mahomes, but Deshaun Watson certainly should have been drafted higher than who Chicago took. 10,163 passing yards for Deshaun Watson in his 3-year career, 90 career passing TDs in those 3 years. He is the career completion percentage leader at 674. He's got 12,000 plus yards off total offense and 1,934 rushing yards, 26 TDs. Very capable on his feet. They just didn't ask him to do it all that often. But that final drive, the pass to Leggett that's barely inside his catch radius, the pass to Williams that he's able to go up and get, the pass to Williams that drew the pass interference call that then set things up for that little pitch and catch to Hunter Renfrow, and just what he meant to this team coming in, taking over. Basically, not directly, but basically taking over, picking up where Tajh Boyd had left off, and there was kind of that muddled freshman year for Watson. He handled that freshman year so well, like developed, became who he needed to be to lift this program to new heights.
Well, and Bill, don't even forget the drive before the championship winning drive, the dive toward the end zone, right, where he
Yeah.
gets knocked out just short of the goal line, beating South Carolina with a torn ACL, right? I mean, and the back and forth with Lamar Jackson in 2016 in that
Yeah.
great game, the game against Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl, where Dabo Swinney after the game says it's been 35 years since Clemson played for a national title. It's not going to be much longer,
Right.
right? His performance in that game. So you can go back to so many games of his career, and obviously it culminates with them winning a national title. And look, I remember Chris Fowler at the end of that game. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but saying what he meant to the Clemson program, but what he meant to college football for 3 years. And all-time greats at Clemson, you have to include Deshaun Watson in that list.
Certainly deserved a Heisman somewhere in there, right? Like,
I thought so too. Yes.
one of those two final seasons. And look, Mark Ingram, heck of a running back, Lamar Jackson, heck of a quarterback. You're not losing out to slouches at least, but boy, did Watson deserve one. Connect with us on social media. That's at Clemson Kickoff. Whether you're on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, or Facebook, you'll find us there. And another guy who deserved one, if you ask me, was Trevor Lawrence. Came along, again, had to handle that freshman season of not coming right in and being the starter. And because he was able to stay healthy, Watson had, I think it was a pinky injury that freshman year that kind of took him off the field more than it should have, especially after he played so well in Tallahassee at Florida State. Lawrence comes in as a freshman in 2018, pardon me, and really just by week 4, it was clear he just had to be the starter. He went on to be a first team All American, first round draft pick, number one overall, if I remember correctly, to
Yes.
Jacksonville. Uh, he was the quarterback on that third national championship team. Career winning percentage leader, 94.4%. Career pass efficiency rating record of 164.3. Career yards per passing attempt record at 8.87. I could keep going. 10,098 passing yards, 90 passing TDs. He mixed in 943 career rushing yards. Just ask Ohio State if he can run or not. He also tied the career record for most wins against the top 25 opponents with 9. So did not lose a regular season game. And I'll tell you what, if he hadn't been so physically battered and bruised against LSU, one of the reasons that could have gone differently, that we could have seen a different game there, and you could have seen him go 30-0 with first back-to-back playoff titles.
Yeah, I mean, so dominant against Alabama his freshman year in that championship
Yeah,
game. That team, the 2016 championship team, played a lot of close games. The 2018 team didn't play many close games.
yeah,
I know the game against Syracuse when Trevor, his first start, he got hurt. But there weren't many close games in 2018, including the semifinal game against Notre Dame and the championship game where they blew out those two teams. Is it getting better than that? Blowing out Notre Dame and blowing out Alabama to win a national title. I think the next year, I really believe he had something injury wise in the Ohio State game that happened in that game, and then he played with it against LSU. He just wasn't as efficient in that game. He's a different kind of player than Deshaun Watson, but great nonetheless. Still early in his NFL career. We'll see what he becomes. Again, this is just what he did at Clemson. But had I, Bill, I know you probably thought this. I thought this. Deshaun Watson's a once in a generation kind of quarterback at Clemson, and then 2 years later you got another one,
right.
right? So maybe we'll see if Clemson gets another guy like this. But you know we I know we don't have Kelly Bryant on this list. Kelly Bryant was in between them and led Clemson to a playoff
Yeah,
appearance in his 1 year as a starter. But it was clear after, like you said, that Georgia Tech game or Georgia Southern game in those early in that season, Trevor Lawrence needs to be the starter. Remember his first pass against A&M, right?
yeah.
The touchdown to T.
T.
Higgins down the
Higgins, yeah.
sideline. So just an all-time great college football player. I don't think anybody would deny that or debate that.
No, and it's funny after, I guess during and after his rookie season, or maybe even a little bit of draft buzz, they were like, "Oh, Clemson's system limited him." But he, to his credit, was immersed in learning that system and really mastered it. And the results showed on the field. And to me, what that says is he's a student of the game. He's able to go out and do whatever is necessary. And it's too bad he hasn't had that coaching stability in Jacksonville that really helps to develop a top quarterback prospect into a true top passer. I think you can say the same of Deshaun Watson. That Chad Morris system that he came to Clemson for, and that stayed as with Jeff Scott and Tony Elliott, and the way they executed the offense with him at the helm, and tried to keep things very similar to that spread theory that Morris brought in. Watson was very, very good at that, knew the tendencies of the players around him. Like just both of them, such cerebral quarterbacks on the field and able to make sure that they do the right thing at the right time to the right guy, depending on how things went. And then we're gonna mention another one who you could consider a generational quarterback talent. And again, these three guys in no particular order, but we've got Tajh Boyd now to talk about, 2010 to 2013. Started out again, had to cut his teeth a little bit. We'll talk about that with Cade Klubnik some as well. But first team All American, definitely is one thing that could put anybody onto a list like this. Career completions leader at 901, career passing TDs leader and ACC leader at 107, career 300-yard games leader at 18, career total offense leader. It goes on and on and on and on. 13,000 yards of career total offense for Tajh Boyd, 11,904 of it passing, 107 passing TDs, as we mentioned. 1,165 rushing yards, but he was always kind of that short yardage situation. Like he escaped a lot of Sacks, well, depended how good that opposing defensive line was, and some of those defensive lines then on the other side of the field were able to just overwhelm the Clemson offensive line at that point. But you put him in a lot of situations. He was able to just muscle out some yards and avoid sacks, keep the team kind of in rhythm and on count with first down, second down, third down progressions. 26 rushing touchdowns, same as Deshaun Watson. Boyd really elevated this offense and took it to a new height in a way that Kyle Parker couldn't quite manage, especially after Parker took that hit to the lower back against Auburn that really would have been targeting these days. But I think what Boyd really showed was, hey, if you're an elite talent, you need to come to Clemson. Like Spiller and Watkins, is not the end of the story. Here's Tajh Boyd able to make sure the ball gets distributed everywhere, showing that the Clemson offense can become something that's never been before. And he certainly was that bridge to making that happen.
Yeah, no doubt. Look, I think there's a couple things about Tajh Boyd that stand out to me. That run in 2011, right when they beat Auburn, Florida State, Virginia Tech, and it was the first time an ACC team had beaten three ranked teams in 3 straight weeks. Auburn's the defending national champion. Bill, that stadium was as loud that day as I ever remember being in there for
Hmm,
a home game. I think was it Cody Sensabaugh had the interception at the end that kind of sealed it. I mean,
that's
the
right.
place exploded at that point. The win over Florida State the next week, and then going on the road to beating Virginia Tech. Tajh, remember, is the quarterback who won the ACC title for the first time in what it seemed like 40 or 50 years. I know it wasn't that long, but
Right.
it seemed like that. Um, I don't think, and then there's that stretch for me. Then there's the game against LSU, right, in the Peach Bowl, which felt like it elevated the program. I know that they didn't win a national title. They didn't get into that mix, or they didn't to that level at that time. But that those two things to me felt like they lifted Clemson. That 2011 stretch kind of got Clemson back on the national stage, and then beating LSU, where he carried the ball in the 20s. He was the running game. And then there's the 4th and 16 throw to keep the drive alive and go allow Catanzaro to make the game winning kick.
Yeah.
Those two games, or the 2011 stretch and the Peach Bowl, elevate Tajh Boyd in my mind. And then also, as you said, he's in that same era where it wasn't cool to come to Clemson and play quarterback. Tajh Boyd was a 5-star.
Yeah.
He probably could have gone to any program in the country and played
Tennessee
quarterback.
commit at one point, I
I
think, and
believe so,
yeah,
yeah.
close
And
to, or a Virginia Tech commit maybe at one point because he was
right,
from that area.
right. But he picked Clemson and
Yeah.
didn't have to, right? And didn't there was no evidence of why would I go to Clemson to play quarterback, right? There was no, hey, Deshaun Watson did this. I'm Trevor Lawrence. I'm going to go there and do that. So
Right.
I think that Taj, Sammy, CJ, they've they didn't win a national title, but you don't win a national title without those guys going to Clemson
There you go.
and proving that it's cool to go to Clemson and it can be done at Clemson at a very high level. And Bill, if they'd had a little bit better defense, maybe they do elevate. And I mean, look,
Or
I
O
mean
line.
those were some right. Those were some teams that didn't have the O line that came after, and didn't have the defense that came after. This is
Yep.
pre Brent Venables, right? So, I just feel like Taj. A lot of folks aren't going to give Taj the credit he deserves. These other three quarterbacks have won a national title. He didn't win a national title, but you don't win a national title at Clemson with Deshaun Watson without Taj Boyd coming to Clemson first.
Yep. Hey, check out our website, clemsonkickoff.com. It's got kickoff times, it's got archives of episodes and blogs, some offers. It's a simple resource for you. Nice little segue, I think, into previewing 2025 because is a national title the only thing that could propel Cade Klubnik into a group of the four greatest quarterbacks of all time, especially if we were to stick to our guns of having that Ring of Honor be, hey, you're automatic in the Final Four if you're in the Ring of Honor. Klubnik, let's just jump right into it. So many things that he did better last year. Uh, I think he managed more situations well than he had ever before. He made fewer mistakes than ever before. He was he. I think the Georgia game was terrible, and then that touchdown pass to Wesco against App State absolutely changed who he was. I mean, and it felt to me like an overreaction as he's like, chugging down the field at top speed and pumping the fists and having look, it worked, right?
It was
I'm
a
more of a Barry.
release. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was perfect way to say it. Like I'm more of a Barry Sanders kind of guy, but you know what? There's no Barry Sanders on the field anymore. There's no Walter Paytons, Jim Browns on the field anymore. So let's live with that. And then again to follow it up the next week against NC State, even with Maffa getting hurt in that game, and that changed the running game tremendously moving forward. But again, he hits Wesco deep. He had a nice deep pass to Williams. He had a nice long run against NC State. And those two games back to back, to do it against App State, which was a pretty good Sun Belt team the year before. I think they took an unexpected step back last season. Then NC State to do against an ACC team, even though it really did prove that their secondary was kind of slow and not very capable. It was part of all that building process for Klubnik, the quarterback. And it was kind of disappointing to me to see some of the mistakes that happened, especially by season's end, where those things should have been out of his system. But, I didn't get to watch the Louisville game very closely. That defense should have been exploited for 30, 40 points. And then you get to the South Carolina game, and as we know in hindsight, they had 5 NFL draft picks on that defense. But the mistakes, the fumble, the bad exchange in the backfield, maybe it wasn't a fumble, the bad interception, maybe it's a fluke, but that interception at the end where he just doesn't pay attention to the fundamentals and he gets a little lost in the moment again. It felt more like that sophomore season. I won't say it was as bad as his freshman mistakes, but it did really feel more like that sophomore season. And those are the things that he's got to keep reducing. Those are the things that he's got to keep knocking down. And the three and outs, the throwaway plays that are just causing three and outs, where you get the ball after the defense makes a stop and the defense is right back on the field like 90 seconds later. Those are the two things that I think he's really got to work hard to reduce this coming season. I'm curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, I think he took a good step last year, right? I don't think it was the step. I think he made a lot of good plays, but the South Carolina game, they didn't lose the South Carolina game because of him. I know everybody will point towards the mistake at the end.
Right. And I'm not trying
There,
to say that. You're right.
sure, right, right. There's, the one play was not a fumble. Till I will die believing on or die on that hill. That was a should have been a not a turnover.
Right.
But look, you're going to get blamed for that because you're the quarterback. That's life at that position. I thought he took a good step. He did. He's won 2 ACC titles as the starting quarterback at Clemson. Remember when that would have been maybe Ring of Honor worthy,
Yeah.
right? But he has won 2 ACC titles as he didn't start the first one, but they weren't winning that first ACC title if he didn't come in the game
Right.
and take over. And then he won one last year. So thank you, Hooser, for making that kick. But
Mm.
it's like Cade, you take 4 steps forward and then take one back, and you want to see him be more consistent.
Yeah.
But Bill, they also have to be better around him. And I felt like they got better around him last year. Again, a lot of the time, but then sometimes they weren't better around him. And, the running game against South Carolina, what happened, right? Where's the offensive line at that point?
Yeah.
The defense, falling apart in bad spots. But, I think you look at the Texas game. First drive down the field, bing, bing, boom, touchdown, right? And then you don't do anything for
Mm,
2.5 quarters or
yeah,
whatever. And then you get close, and then the defense falls apart.
right.
So it feels like you're close, you're close, you're close, you're close. But also, Bill, I don't think he's not Trevor. He's not Deshaun, where you come in and go, okay, that guy's going to lead you to a national title. He's been more of a develop over time guy, and he needs time, and he needs time. Okay, well, now's your time. This is it,
Yeah,
and but I think that he's better, and I think they're better around him, right? And I think the offensive line's better. I think the running game, Muffa's gone, Shipley's gone, but I think they've got a deeper group than just one or two guys now.
right.
I think you definitely can. The wide receivers are better as a group. And I think you're going to see the defense take a step forward too with the new coaching staff or the new with Coach Allen leading the defense.
Right.
So I look, I think he's going to have a strong year. Is he a Heisman favorite? All that kind of stuff. I don't think so because I think that's too big of a leap
He should
until
be
he
in that
does it this year,
conversation. Yeah,
right?
he should be in that
He
conversation.
if he takes the same step as big of a step from last year to this year, if he takes that again, okay, we can start having that conversation. But it's look, the schedule's a little tougher this year. Another tough opener, just like last year, although this one's at home. Um, Garrett Nussmeier is a really good player, and
Yeah,
he's going to be judged against. Cade's going to be judged against him. I like Cade. I think he's had a good career, as you said. I think right now he's more in that list with, you know, Charlie Whitehurst, Rodney Williams, Woody Dantzler, Homer Jordan. He's in that tier.
yeah,
Can he elevate to the next tier? I don't think there's any doubt he can, but that's why we play the games, and we'll
yeah.
find out this season.
No, I love what you said. He's got to take that step forward. Like so much of the preseason hype and compliments about Clemson this year is based on they've got so many guys coming back. But I would say nearly every one of those guys coming back has something significant that they have to work on in their game if Clemson is really going to be uh, competing for a national title, make a deep playoff run. And
Right.
Klubnik is kind of the microcosm of that, right? Like he got so much better last year. Like he deserves all this hype. He deserves all this attention. It's what you do behind the scenes, though, that's really going to matter. Can he reduce those mistakes? Can he reduce those? That's okay. We'll come back next time because you can only turn to your defense so many times. That's part of what happened against Louisville. That's part of what happened against Texas. That's at some point it became part of what happened against SMU. That the offense was sputtering in the third quarter. It sputtered most of the
South
night against
Carolina.
Louisville. It
Yeah.
sputtered all day against South Carolina. Should have been enough points on the board in those games to not have that happen. And there seems to be a certain I'm not enough of a X's and O's guy to say, hey, here's what it is. But we've got people like Garrett Riley, we've got people like Dabo Sweeney, we've got people like Matt Luke who should be able to take a look at it. Even ask Tom, hey, Tom Allen, what do you see? You
Right.
said you watched all the tape. Crossover, give us 20 minutes of information from behind enemy lines. What did you see about this offense that if as a defensive coordinator preparing for it, what would make you really happy to see? As the fact that you're now a Clemson Tiger, what is it that worries you that your guys are going to have to atone for and cover for? Here's another wild card, and I want to talk about Christopher Vizina because his growth is going to be really important, I think, to how Cade Klubnik gets used. How much will they run Cade Klubnik this season? Is Vizina good enough that you can say, hey, if Klubnik gets dinged up, if he's got some kind of little something that's going to keep him out a week or two or three, can you get through that stretch against this schedule with Christopher Vizina running the show? Because if you feel that way about him, then that running back room becomes less of a concern. And I'm not as concerned about that as a lot of people are. And I don't mean to gloss it over, but let's be real. Cade Klubnik being able to run the ball more, he's got the talent, he's got the ability, but you're not asking him to do it a lot if there's no backup.
Right.
If your backup is not really ready. And Vizina was brought to Clemson, I think, as a project. He came from a small school. He's got all the physical tools. And to me, he started looking better during that spring game. And if that means that this coaching staff can trust him with an extended run of taking snaps, then you can put Klubnik out there uh, running the ball a little bit more.
Yeah, Bill, a couple of things. David Swinney said at ACC Media Days that Cade Klubnik came to Clemson weighing 175 pounds, and now he weighs 206 or 207 and can use his legs, right? That was something that Dabo talked about a lot that freshman year that Cade couldn't do. And that's part of the Clemson offense. I mean, you go back and look at Deshaun, look at Tajh, look at Trevor Lawrence, look at Kelly Bryant. They all did it differently, but it is part of what Clemson wants to do offensively. I like what Christopher Vizina can be. I'm with you as far as, can he get some more time this year? Can he take that next step and be a viable player at quarterback? I don't think he could have played last year if needed. But I do think we're getting to that point that he could play if they needed him to play. And look, I go back to the Klubnik point of what is he versus what he can be. Bill, go back to that Pitt game, right? Last year. They come out, first drive down the field, they score, right? And then they score one more touchdown, but they don't do anything for 2 quarters. And Pitt comes back, takes the lead. Then they get the ball back. It's a lot like the SMU game, really. And he makes the play with his legs, scores the long touchdown, on the ground. And you're like, that's what we want. That's what we need more of. And it's just a consistency thing. Is you've seen him do it, but it needs to be more consistent. So I think that's the key with Cade. I think that's the key with the entire offense is just be more consistent. And look, I mean, and then after Klubnik and Vizina at quarterback, I mean, you're looking at Trent Pierman. We've had that discussion about after the spring game last year.
Yeah,
Not so much this year, but a little bit more this last year.
right.
And then I want to see what Chris Denson is. Right? Do we even get to see Chris Denson on the field this year? It's either really, really good or really, really bad if Chris Denson is playing this year. So we'll find out. But
Yeah.
I feel like there's more positives about the quarterback group this year than there have been for a couple of years. And that's what I think that's the way you have to look at it. Is it perfect? No. Is it, hey, we can he's going to carry us? I don't think it's that. We'll see. I mean, I don't think that anybody would argue that Cade is in the Deshaun, Trevor, Tajh Boyd group yet. But he go have a big senior year, and then we can talk about this again after that.
Yeah. Hopefully, we will have very good conversations about that once we get to the flip of the calendar, shall we say?
Yes.
Put it that way. So, really exciting. I hope everyone's been enjoying this series that we've been doing, melding the position previews for this season along with the best of all time and kind of looking at all that. Like I said, we're not the first to look at each position at the all-time best, but I hope we're doing it in a way that's been really enjoyable. And the preseason news is not over. We will keep coming at you with more leading up to kickoff against LSU in the real Death Valley, the original Death Valley, and still the real one. So I'm really looking forward to that game. I think it's going to be a big one. I think it'll be close, and it's certainly going to be a battle of quarterbacks, as you mentioned. So, well, until our next episode of the Reign Supreme Always podcast, season 4, I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers.